Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the glamorous, cutthroat world of Los Angeles fashion. Today is a beautiful day to unpack the explosive drama unfolding at Forrester Creations, as a seismic shift in power promises to change the landscape of our favorite dynasty forever. Grab your favorite beverage, settle in, and let us explore the breathtaking evolution of a legacy that has kept us captivated for decades. For years, the halls of Forrester Creations have echoed with the familiar refrains of a decades-old rivalry, a cyclical battle for supremacy that has defined the very essence of the fashion empire. At the center of this perpetual storm has always been the stark contrast between the Forrester and Logan families, a dynamic characterized by passion, betrayal, and an endless struggle for control. Yet, nothing in the rich, turbulent history of this iconic company could have adequately prepared its denizens for the unprecedented corporate earthquake that is currently shattering the foundation of the executive suite. The narrative we are witnessing is not merely another chapter in a tired feud. It is the complete and utter metamorphosis of a character we thought we knew intimately. Hope Logan Spencer, the perennial beacon of morality, the unwavering voice of reason, and the quintessential good girl of Los Angeles, has officially crossed the Rubicon. Driven to the absolute edge by continuous marginalization and professional disrespect, Hope has shed her angelic persona to reveal a formidable, calculating financial shark, orchestrating a hostile takeover that will echo through the annals of Forrester history. The genesis of this breathtaking transformation can be traced directly to the suffocating environment cultivated by Steffy Forrester Finnegan. Operating from the chief executive chair with an iron fist and an undeniable aura of entitlement, Steffy has systematically dismantled the creative sanctuary Hope spent her entire adult life building. The decision to abruptly and callously halt the Hope for the Future line was the fatal catalyst. Steffy justified this draconian measure under the guise of prioritizing Eric Forrester's couture collection, masking her deeply ingrained personal animosity behind a veil of corporate pragmatism. For Steffy, shelving HFDF was not merely a financial pivot. It was a deliberate assertion of dominance, a way to remind Hope that she existed within the Forrester empire strictly at the mercy of its namesake heirs. Steffy believed she had successfully neutralized her greatest rival, assuming that Hope would retreat to the shadows, nurse her wounded pride, and eventually accept her diminished role with the quiet grace she had always exhibited in the past. However, Steffy gravely miscalculated the depth of the psychological trauma she had inflicted, completely underestimating the dangerous alchemy of grief, betrayal, and suppressed ambition brewing within her stepsister. Hope did not break, she crystallized. The profound emotional devastation of watching her life's work discarded like yesterday's trends ignited a dormant, ruthless fire within her soul. She looked around the toxic, biased ecosystem of Forrester Creations and realized that playing by the established rules would only ever result in her subjugation. The realization was as liberating as it was terrifying. If the Forrester family was going to continuously weaponize their legacy against her, she would simply have to acquire the weapon herself. The glittering, monumental success of the newly launched Logan brand provided the perfect, intoxicating alternative and the ultimate leverage. Katie Logan Spencer and Bill Spencer had just orchestrated a massive global triumph. Their debut collection broadcasted on towering billboards across the world, generating staggering revenue and unparalleled media buzz. The Logan brand was a roaring testament to what could be achieved outside the oppressive shadow of Forrester Creations. Watching her aunt and the infamous dollar bill revel in their monumental victory, Hope experienced a profound paradigm shift. She recognized that the power Steffy wielded was not an innate, divine right. It was merely a mathematical equation of shares, board seats, and financial backing. Armed with this chillingly pragmatic perspective, Hope executed a maneuver so brilliantly audacious that it would have made the most seasoned Wall Street corporate raiders weep with pride. She did not approach Bill and Katie seeking a mere job or a safe harbor. She approached them with a meticulously crafted blueprint for a corporate coup d'etat. Leveraging the massive liquid capital generated by the Logan brand's recent triumph, Hope pitched an investment opportunity that transcended fashion. It was an investment in absolute, undeniable power. She laid out a compelling, data-driven argument detailing how Steffy's emotionally driven leadership was actively harming Forrester Creations' bottom line, creating a vulnerability that could be exploited. Bill Spencer, a man who has built an empire on the bones of weakened corporations, must have looked at Hope with a mixture of awe and profound paternal pride. The good girl had finally learned how to wield a blade. Recognizing the sheer genius and the lucrative potential of her strategy, Bill and Katie agreed to bankroll Hope with a staggering, astronomical sum of money. With a war chest that rivaled the GDP of a small nation, Hope began her silent, predatory hunt. She did not make grand public declarations or engage in petty office squabbles. Instead, she operated in the shadows, targeting the wavering, disenfranchised minority shareholders of Forrester Creations. These were the board members who had grown quietly exhausted by the endless familial drama, the executives who prioritized profit margins over the Forrester name, and the investors who had secretly disapproved of Steffi's erratic, bias-driven decisions. Hope approached them one by one, offering exorbitant buyouts funded by the Spencer-Logan Alliance. She painted a vivid picture of a company liberated from Steffi's dictatorial grip, a company where profitable lines like HFDF were nurtured rather than sacrificed on the altar of personal vendettas. Slowly, methodically, and with terrifying efficiency, Hope accumulated a massive block of voting power, transforming herself from a marginalized employee into the most dangerous entity in the building. The culmination of this covert operation is a scene of cinematic brilliance, a moment that will be permanently etched into the mythology of the show. The atmosphere inside the Forrester Creations executive office was one of typical, arrogant tranquility. Steffi sat behind the massive, imposing desk, surrounded by the physical manifestations of her perceived invincibility, completely oblivious to the catastrophic storm about to breach her sanctuary. When the heavy wooden doors swung open, the physical shift in the room's energy was palpable. Hope did not enter with her usual tentative grace. She strode into the room with the measured, predatory cadence of an apex predator who has successfully cornered its prey. Her posture was rigid, her expression an impenetrable mask of icy resolve, devoid of the emotional vulnerability that Steffi had so frequently exploited in the past. The confrontation that followed was a masterclass in psychological warfare. Steffi, initially dismissive and visibly irritated by the intrusion, attempted to assert her authority, likely preparing to deliver another condescending lecture about corporate hierarchy. But Hope did not engage in a screaming match or a tearful plea for fairness. Instead, with a chilling, terrifying calmness, she approached the desk and dropped a thick, meticulously bound portfolio of legal documents directly onto the polished mahogany surface. The sound of the heavy paper hitting the desk echoed like a gunshot in the silent room. These were not design sketches or marketing proposals. They were the legally binding transfer of shares, the undeniable, mathematical proof of Hope's newly acquired supremacy. Looking Steffi dead in the eye, Hope articulated her arguments with the precision of a surgeon wielding a scalpel. She did not speak of hurt feelings or sisterly betrayal. She spoke the cold, unforgiving language of corporate governance. She systematically dismantled Steffi's tenure as CEO, exposing the glaring reality that Steffi's leadership was compromised by deep-seated personal bias. Hope laid bare the financial idiocy of shelving a globally recognized, highly profitable entity like Hope for the future simply to satisfy a petty grudge. She argued, with devastating eloquence, that Steffi had repeatedly breached her fiduciary duty to the company by allowing her hatred of the Logans to dictate business strategy, thereby harming the interests of every single shareholder. The sheer force of Hope's logic was an impenetrable fortress, leaving Steffi with absolutely no strategic high ground to retreat to. The crescendo of this breathtaking monologue was the demand itself. Hope did not ask for a seat at the table. She demanded the entire room. With a voice devoid of any hesitation or remorse, she ordered Steffy to step down from her position as chief executive officer, effective immediately. The shockwave that ripped through the room was almost visible. Steffy, the proud, unyielding Forrester matriarch in training, was suddenly reduced to a stunned, cornered executive staring down the barrel of a legally flawless hostile takeover. The realization that the weapon of her destruction had been forged by the very woman she had spent years underestimating was a psychological blow of catastrophic proportions. Hope Logan, the woman who had always turned the other cheek, had just severed the head of the snake. The dramatic tension reaches its absolute zenith with the inevitable arrival of Ridge Forrester. The patriarch of the family, a man who has spent his entire life desperately trying to balance the scales between the Forrester and Logan women, walks into a boardroom that has been transformed into a slaughterhouse. Ridge is immediately confronted with a grim, seemingly impossible dilemma that strikes at the very core of his identity. On one side of the desk stands his biological daughter, Steffy, the heir apparent to the Forrester legacy, currently drowning in the reality of her own hubris. On the other side stands his stepdaughter, Hope, wielding undeniable, objective financial power and articulating a business strategy that is fundamentally, undeniably correct. For Ridge, this is not merely a dispute over a fashion line. It is an existential crisis. If he blindly defends Steffy out of paternal loyalty, he must actively ignore the glaring evidence that her biased management has jeopardized the company's financial stability. He would have to reject the very principles of business that built the Forrester empire, effectively admitting that nepotism supersedes competence. However, if he acknowledges the sheer brilliance of Hope's maneuver and validates her corporate coup, he is committing an act of profound, unforgivable betrayal against his own flesh and blood. He would be handing the keys to the kingdom to a Logan, a reality that would have sent his mother, the formidable Stephanie Forrester, spinning in her grave. Ridge's internal torment is a tragic, beautiful reflection of his lifelong inability to choose. He looks at Hope and sees the undeniable reflection of Bill Spencer's ruthlessness combined with Brooke Logan's unyielding determination, a terrifying, awe-inspiring combination. He realizes, with a sinking feeling of dread, that the little girl he helped raise has evolved into a titan capable of bringing his family to its knees. The arguments Hope presents are flawless. The numbers do not lie. Steffy's emotional volatility and vindictive management style have indeed become a liability. To deny this would be to deny reality itself. Yet, looking into Steffy's shocked, desperate eyes, Ridge feels the agonizing pull of DNA, the desperate urge to protect his child from the consequences of her own arrogance. This monumental confrontation signifies the absolute death of the old guard. The era of Steffy Forrester ruling unchallenged from her ivory tower, using the company as a personal weapon against her perceived enemies, has been violently, abruptly terminated. The Forrester family, long accustomed to dictating the terms of engagement, now finds itself entirely at the mercy of a woman who has finally learned to speak their language with terrifying fluency. The infusion of Spencer capital and Logan ambition into the very bloodstream of Forrester Creations has fundamentally altered the DNA of the company. Brooke Logan Forrester, undoubtedly standing in the wings or receiving the real-time updates of this boardroom massacre, must be experiencing a whirlwind of complex emotions. For decades, Brooke has fought tooth and nail for her place within this family, enduring endless humiliation and rejection. Now, she watches as her daughter, the child she tried so hard to protect from the darkness of this world, wields power with a cold, calculated efficiency that even Brooke herself never possessed. There's a profound sense of vindication, a realization that the Logans are no longer just the beautiful muses or the emotional collateral damage of the Forrester men. They are the conquerors. As the dust settles in the executive office, the silence is deafening. The balance of power has shifted so violently that the very walls of the building seem to vibrate with the aftershocks. Hope Logan Spencer stands tall, the undisputed victor of a war she did not start, but one she has definitively finished. She has proven that kindness should never be mistaken for weakness, and that patience, when pushed to its absolute limit, can forge a weapon of unimaginable destructive capability. The financial shark has taken her first bite, and the waters of Los Angeles will never be the same. The ramifications of this hostile takeover will bleed into every single relationship, every design, and every boardroom meeting for years to come. Steffy will be forced to navigate a reality where she is no longer the supreme authority, a psychological demotion that will undoubtedly breed new, darker resentments. Ridge will have to live with the consequences of whatever impossible choice he makes in that room, knowing that his family is fractured beyond repair. And Hope, the new titan of industry, will have to bear the heavy, isolating crown of leadership, proving to the world that her ruthless ascension was not just an act of vengeance, but the necessary evolution of a visionary. The bold and the beautiful has just entered a breathtaking new era.